Disclaimer: this content is for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought one simple yes could change everything. It was supposed to be the perfect honeymoon, romantic, peaceful, and filled with memories we'd cherish forever. But if I had known what was coming, I would have never agreed to that trip. Looking back now, I regret it more than anything. My husband Ryan and I had been married for just a few months when he surprised me with an exotic honeymoon destination. We had postponed our trip after the wedding due to work commitments, so when he finally planned it, I was beyond excited. White sandy beaches, candlelit dinners, and just the two of us. What could go wrong? Or so I thought. From the moment we landed, something felt off. Maybe it was just the exhaustion from the long flight, or maybe it was my imagination running wild. But there were little things, small, unexplainable moments that made my stomach twist in ways I couldn't ignore. The way Ryan kept checking his phone, the strange looks we got from the hotel staff, or how I would wake up in the middle of the night feeling like someone was watching us. I brushed it all off, convincing myself I was just overthinking. And then it happened. One night, as we were having dinner by the beach, a woman approached our table. She wasn't a stranger, at least not to Ryan. The look on his face when he saw her told me everything I needed to know. My heart pounded as I tried to make sense of the tension between them. Who was she? Why was she here? And why did Ryan suddenly look like he had seen a ghost? That moment changed everything. What started as a dream honeymoon quickly turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. And the worst part? That was only the beginning. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to realize you might not know them at all? What would you do if the person you love most was keeping secrets from you? Let me know in the comments what you would have done in my place. And don't forget to like this video if you want to hear what happened next. Trust me, you won't believe where this story goes. Ryan's face went pale. His hand tightened around his glass, and for a split second, I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. He didn't say a word. The woman stood there, her eyes locked on him, waiting. I glanced between them, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Who was she? Why did she have this effect on my husband? I cleared my throat. Ryan? My voice came out quieter than I intended, but he didn't react. He just kept staring at her like she had dragged him back to a past he never wanted to face again. The woman finally broke the silence. "It's been a long time," she said softly, a sad smile on her lips. Her voice was calm, but there was something unsettling about the way she said it, like she knew something I didn't. Ryan finally blinked and forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, it has." His voice was stiff, unnatural, like he was trying too hard to sound normal. I felt my stomach tighten. I had been with Ryan for years. I knew his habits, his expressions, the little things that gave him away. And right now, he was nervous, uncomfortable, maybe even scared. I turned to the woman. "I'm sorry, but do we know you?" I asked, forcing a polite smile even though my mind was racing. She looked at me then, really looked at me, as if she were studying my face. "No," she said finally, "but I know Ryan." The way she said his name sent a chill through me. Ryan let out a shaky breath and set his drink down. "Let's not do this here," he muttered, standing up abruptly. He grabbed my hand, his grip tight, almost desperate. "We should go." I hesitated. Every instinct in me told me not to move, not to let this moment pass without getting answers. But before I could protest, Ryan was already leading me away from the table, his pace quick. I stole one last glance at the woman. She hadn't moved. She was still watching us, her expression unreadable. As soon as we were out of earshot, I pulled my hand away. "Ryan, what was that?" I demanded. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. It's nothing, he said, but his voice was too tight, too forced. Nothing? I didn't believe that for a second, and deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. I didn't say another word as we walked back to our hotel, but my mind was spinning. Ryan's grip on my hand had loosened, but his whole body was tense. He was avoiding my eyes, pretending everything was fine, but it wasn't. I could feel it. That woman wasn't just some old acquaintance. She meant something. And whatever their history was, Ryan didn't want me to know about it. Once we got to our room, he let out a heavy sigh and sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. I stood near the door, arms crossed. Ryan, I need you to tell me the truth. Who was she? He hesitated. She's someone from my past. It's not important. I scoffed. Not important? Ryan, you looked like you saw a ghost. And she knew you. She knew us. Why would she just show up like that? He shook his head. I don't know. I wasn't expecting to see her. His voice was quieter now, like he was talking more to himself than to me. Something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. Ryan, did you invite her here? The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. The idea of my husband secretly planning to meet another woman on our honeymoon made my stomach turn. His head snapped up. What? No, of course not. He looked genuinely hurt that I even suggested it. But the doubt was already there. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But there were too many unanswered questions. Why was she here? What did she want? And most of all, why was Ryan so afraid of her? Later that night, when Ryan was in the shower, I couldn't stop myself. I grabbed his phone from the nightstand. My heart raced as I opened his messages. I wasn't the kind of person who checked my husband's phone, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. But there was nothing. No messages, no calls, no mention of her at all. I should have felt relieved, but instead, I felt worse. Because if there was no record of her, it meant one thing. Ryan had something to hide. What would you do in my situation? Would you confront him again or try to find answers on your own? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this is the worst part, trust me, it's not. You won't believe what happens next. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she looked at Ryan, the way he looked at her, the uneasiness in his voice when he said it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I could feel it in my gut. Ryan slept soundly beside me, his breathing steady, like none of this was bothering him. Or maybe he was just good at pretending. I turned away, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with possibilities. Was she an ex? Someone from his past he never told me about? Or was it something worse? Something he couldn't tell me? The next morning, I decided I couldn't sit with the unknown any longer. If Ryan wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. He had gone down to the lobby to grab coffee, leaving me alone in the room. That's when I remembered something. The hotel had security cameras. A crazy idea, I know, but I needed to see if that woman had been watching us before she approached. Had she just happened to run into us, or had she been waiting? I threw on a jacket and hurried downstairs, my heart pounding. The front desk attendant greeted me with a polite smile. I tried to sound casual. Hey, I think I lost something near the restaurant last night. Any chance you have security footage I could check? The woman hesitated. Oh, I'm sorry, but guests aren't allowed to access security recordings. Of course, I forced a laugh. Right, makes sense. Maybe I'll ask the restaurant staff. I turned to leave, but then she said something that made my blood run cold. Oh, but if you're looking for your friend, she was asking about you this morning. I froze. Excuse me? She nodded. The woman you were with last night? She was here earlier asking if we had a record of your room number. I told her we couldn't give out guest information, of course. My throat went dry. She had been looking for me? I turned and rushed back to the elevator, my mind spinning. Why was she trying to find me? And more importantly, what did she want? What would you do if you were in my situation? Confront Ryan again? Try to find this woman myself? Let me know in the comments. And don't go anywhere, because what happened next changed everything. My hands were shaking as I stepped into the elevator, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. Why was this woman looking for me? What did she want? And why hadn't she just confronted me last night when she had the chance? I needed to talk to Ryan. Now, by the time I reached our room, I was out of breath. I swiped the key card and pushed the door open, ready to demand answers, but the room was empty. Ryan's coffee cup sat on the nightstand, still full. His phone charger was plugged in, but his phone wasn't there. The bed was still messy from when we left it. But Ryan? He was gone. Panic crawled up my spine. I checked the bathroom. Nothing. The closet. Nothing. His suitcase was still there, his clothes hanging in the open wardrobe. If he had gone somewhere, it wasn't planned. I grabbed my phone and called him. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. Something was wrong. I sank onto the bed, trying to make sense of it. Maybe he had just stepped out. Maybe he left his phone somewhere. Maybe. A knock at the door made me jump. I hesitated. A part of me didn't want to open it. What if it was her? But my hands moved before I could stop them, and I slowly pulled the door open. It wasn't Ryan. It was the woman. She stood there, her expression unreadable, her eyes scanning my face. Up close, I noticed small details I hadn't before. The dark circles under her eyes, the slight tremble in her fingers as she held her bag strap. "Where is he?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "I don't know. He's not here." Her jaw tightened. "Of course he's not." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" She exhaled, looking past me into the room as if expecting to see him. Then she stepped closer. "I know you don't trust me, and you shouldn't," she admitted. "But you need to listen to me. Ryan isn't who you think he is." I let out a nervous laugh. "Right, because you know my husband better than I do?" She didn't react. "Has he ever told you about Bali?" My breath caught in my throat. "What?" Her gaze darkened. "No, I didn't think so." Bali. Ryan and I had never been there together, but I knew he had. He had once mentioned taking a trip there years ago, before we met. I never thought much of it. But now, the way she said it, like it was the missing piece to something I didn't even know was broken, made my stomach twist. Before I could ask anything else, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. "I have to go," she whispered. And just like that, she turned and hurried down the hallway, disappearing before I could even process what had just happened. What was in Bali? What was Ryan hiding? And most importantly, where was he now? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Follow her? Wait for Ryan? Or dig into his past yourself? Let me know in the comments. And trust me, this story is far from over. I stood frozen in the doorway long after she disappeared down the hall. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of conversations, memories, and the uneasy feeling I had been trying to ignore since we arrived. Bali. What did she mean? What had Ryan done there? And why was he suddenly missing after she showed up again? I couldn't just sit here. I grabbed my phone and dialed Ryan's number again, straight to voicemail. My pulse pounded in my ears as I paced the room, debating my next move. Then a thought hit me. I needed to check the hotel's guest list. If she was staying here, I had to find out what room she was in. I rushed back downstairs, scanning the lobby, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Nothing. The front desk attendant from earlier was still there, giving me a polite smile. I hesitated before stepping forward, my voice shaking. Hey, that woman from last night? Do you know what room she's in? The attendant frowned. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't give out guest information. I expected that answer, but I wasn't giving up. I understand, but she was looking for my husband, and now he's missing. Something in my voice must have alarmed her because her expression shifted. She lowered her voice. She's in room 412. I barely got out a thank you before I rushed to the elevator, my hands clammy as I pressed the button. When I reached the fourth floor, I hesitated for just a moment before knocking on the door. Silence. Then footsteps. The door creaked open just a crack. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I pushed forward. I don't care. Tell me the truth. Where is my husband? She sighed, then stepped back, letting me inside. The room was dimly lit, her suitcase half packed on the bed. A laptop was open on the desk, an email chain visible on the screen. I caught a glimpse of Ryan's name. She noticed and shut it quickly. I tried to warn you, she said, but now it's too late. A chill ran down my spine. Too late for what? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed in my hand. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice spoke on the other end. You should have left when you had the chance. The call cut off. I looked at her, my blood running cold. She didn't look surprised. What would you do now? Because I just realized my honeymoon trip wasn't just a mistake, it was a trap, and I walked right into it. I lowered the phone slowly, my hands cold and shaky. The woman, whoever she was, watched me carefully, like she was waiting for my reaction. My mind raced. A trap? But why? And how was Ryan involved? I forced myself to breathe. Tell me the truth, I whispered. Who are you? She hesitated, then sighed. My name is Emily, and I used to be in your position. I stared at her. What does that mean? She glanced at the closed laptop, then back at me. Ryan isn't the man you think he is. Something inside me shattered. You're lying. She shook her head. I wish I were. She grabbed a small notebook from her bag and handed it to me. He disappears, doesn't he? He keeps secrets, and no matter how much you love him, something always feels off. I opened the notebook with trembling hands. Inside were dates, locations, Bali, Greece, Paris, and names of women. My heart stopped when I saw mine at the bottom of the list. This isn't real, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily gave me a sad look. It is. Ryan finds women like us, makes us fall in love, marries us, and then she paused, choosing her words carefully. He disappears when it's time. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. Time for what? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I didn't pick up. Emily stood. You need to leave, right now. My mind screamed at me to run, but my heart wasn't ready to believe it. Ryan wouldn't do this. He loved me, didn't he? Then I thought about the way he looked at Emily when she approached us. Not with surprise, not with confusion, with fear. The truth hit me like a wave. Ryan knew exactly who she was. And now he was gone. I turned to Emily. What happens if I stay? Her face darkened. You don't want to find out. I grabbed my bag, my passport, my wallet, and for the first time since the trip started, I made a decision for myself. I walked out of that hotel room and never looked back. So, what would you have done? Would you have stayed and demanded answers, or left before it was too late? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this story is over, well, you might just be wrong.